This is Seahawks Today. I am your host, Will Ortner, and we have to discuss the latest injury news that is going on right now with the Seahawks, as well as what's going on with the LA Rams. Both teams have had some injury news and actually a sickness news for one of the squads that are really going to affect these teams on Sunday in the NFC Championship game. A couple of things starting to look on the good side for Seattle. A couple of things I'm still a little bit worried about. And on the Rams side, it's not a whole lot of injury news to talk about, but the injury news that is there is very important. First, I want to start with the home team, of course, and that is our Seattle Seahawks. And some of the moves and some of the positions that they need to make sure that they put themselves in, because there's three key injuries that we really need to make sure that we talk about. It does look like we are on the positive end with a couple of these. Before we do that, though, check out the Mob Mentality t-shirt that we got rocking right now. They're available. This link will be in the comment and the description of today's video. We got the black, we've got the navy. You want to be just like the Seahawks. Mission over. Make sure that you go in if you get an opportunity to go get your Seahawks MOB shirt as soon as you can. We are also, by the way, in a sub battle with the Rams Report. We're taking them on. We are ahead of Rams Report right now just by a couple of subscribers. So if you haven't had the opportunity to, come on in and hit that sub button for the channel. So the first player that we have to kind of get into and have a conversation about and have a conversation with is a player that, frankly, I thought was going to be back after the last injury report. Elijah Arroyo, the tight end from Miami, has been fighting through some different ailments and some different issues throughout basically the back half of this year. Had to go on to IR for the Seahawks. But it is important to note that after being a full participant in every practice last week, despite not being activated for the game, Arroyo has been a full participant in practice this week as well. That is important to the Seahawks because they would get their second tight end back. Now, A.J. Barner would still be the number one receiver, but what Elijah Arroyo does is not always shown up on the stat sheet. When we look at the 13-game season so far for the rookie, obviously the numbers are not going to jump off the screen to you. You're not going to sit there and say, wow, Elijah Arroyo was competing for that NFC or NFL Rookie of the Year. But what is important to note is how defenses have to play the Seahawks when Elijah Arroyo is out there. They are not able to commit as many people to the box because that means Arroyo is going to get more of a mismatch on the outside edges. But what's also important to note and what's important to talk about is that Elijah Arroyo is an excellent blocker and gives the Seahawks an opportunity to get two tight ends out on the field. Salbert, pretty good blocker, but I wouldn't say that he's great in the pass-catching game. I do expect Arroyo to be back for the Seahawks on Sunday. I expect him to be activated. The only reason that he wouldn't necessarily be activated at this point would be because of injuries in other positions, so that way they can make sure that the Seahawks are as deep as possible. Do you agree with me? Will Elijah Arroyo play this Sunday? I say yes. I would go down in the comment section and type agree. If you agree with me, you can do the same. If you disagree, you think it's going to be someone else, let me know down below in the comment section, agree or disagree. Next player that we have to talk about, Uchenna Nwosu. Now, here's what's important about Nwosu. This is the type of injury that just kind of popped up on the Seahawks injury report. He obviously went out, had a pretty decent game against the 49ers. I mean, shoot, everyone had a pretty decent game against the 49ers. And then he kind of popped up with a hamstring injury. What's important about Nwosu here, and it's important to remember as well, is even though he pops up on the injury report, that could just be because he needed to go in and get extra treatment on his lower body injury. Whenever a player gets extra treatment or gets extra help on something that's been ailing them or that's been bothering them, they get put on the report. Nwosu needs to be at 100% for this Seahawks team to operate at the highest levels possible that they can. When we look at Uchenna Nwosu and when he's playing at his best, what the rest of this defense is able to do is light years ahead of what anybody else can do on the defensive side of the football in the National Football League, because that means that the Seahawks have 4 down rushers that at any moment can get to the quarterback. No other team has that, at least not to the extent that the Seahawks have. If Nwosu is 100%, then the Seahawks might finally have an opportunity to get their first sack on Matthew Stafford. The last player that I want to talk about is offensive tackle Charles Cross, and we get kind of a conflicting injury report on Cross, but I do think it is important to kind of mention that I still think it's on the better side of what type of report that we could have gotten about him. Remember, he is dealing with a foot injury, coming off of a hamstring injury, coming off of a knee injury. We learned early in the week from head coach Mike McDonald that Cross was going to be day-to-day with his foot injury, and when he didn't practice on Wednesday, there was a lot of fear from some people, myself kind of included, that Cross may not be in as good of a position as we thought to be able to go, especially since Josh Jones and Amari Kite were out of practice as well. This came to us right before we went live today. Michael Sean Dugar of The Athletic reported that basically the Seahawks' plan has always been to not have Cross active too much this week in practice. They're very optimistic that he will be able to play. And even though Charles Cross did not practice, that doesn't mean that he will not be playing for the Seahawks. Cross is the type of player who's been around the block for quite some time. He doesn't need to practice because he is a veteran of the game. He is a guy who has been around long enough to know what works for him during the week and what doesn't work for him during the week. So to have Cross at 100% on Sunday, we don't need him out on the field. So I would say that I'm still optimistic about where Cross is at. Next, we are going to get into the LA Rams injury report, what's happening with them, because their list of injured players is not nearly as long, but it is important to note that there are multiple big-time players for them that are on that injury report. Before we get into that, though, I do need to let you know about our good friends over at Marsmen, the proud sponsor of today's video. Nobody tells you about this stuff. One day you're crushing it, you're feeling good, looking fly. Next day you're wondering why everything feels twice as hard. And when the new year hit, I kind of treated it like a reset, and I really needed it. I wanted to feel energized again, not so worn down. So I'm keeping it simple and doing something natural that supports my body where it needs it. That's why I'm taking Marsmen. It helps your body unlock usable testosterone so you can feel like yourself again. Check out mengotomars.com to get 50% off for life plus free shipping and 3 free gifts. Hopefully you can tell that I'm a guy who likes to head on over to the gym. I'm always looking for the next thing that I can get in my recovery and strength training. Thank goodness I found Mars Men. Mars Men supports healthy T levels, energy, and stamina with 8 naturally clinically dosed ingredients, including vitamin D, zinc, and boron. The best part, there's a 90-day money-back guarantee, so there's no risk. Worst case, you don't absolutely love it and you get your money back. But over 91% of users report higher energy levels. Thousands of guys are feeling incredible results. Just check out the reviews on the website to see for yourself. For a limited time, our listeners get 50% off for life plus free shipping and 3 free gifts at mengotomars.com. It's a perfect way to kick off the new year strong. That's mengotomars.com for 50% off and 3 free gifts at checkout. After you purchase, they will ask you where you heard about them. Please support our show and tell them our show sent you. Shout out to Marsmen. Really appreciate them joining in on the crew. Trying to look a little swoller. Right now, we are going to talk, though, about what's going on with the LA Rams. And again, I said it. Their injury report is not big. When you look at the Seahawks injury report, there's 7, 8, 9, 10 guys who are on that list. When you look at the Rams, it's only about 3 or 4. But the 3 or 4 players that are on that list are all very important to what this LA team wants to do. First, we're going to look at the illness around what's going on, and that is, of course, with safety Quinton Lake. Now, Lake popping up on the injury report caught a lot of people off guard, myself included, because he was someone that, well, frankly, didn't have any nicks, didn't have any scrapes, didn't get banged up, nothing like that at all. What was interesting about what was going on with Quinton Lake is to have an illness like this, how is it going to affect him in the long term? Because I do not believe that a sickness for Lake is going to keep him out of this game. If Lake ended up not playing in the NFC Championship, that would be a bigger upset than pretty much most things that could possibly happen. No matter what's going down with Lake, you know that he's the type of player that's going to put himself in the position to go out and succeed. He's had a very good year this year for the Rams and actually has had some big key plays in the postseason. Now, the question will be for Lake, what type of player is going to show up on Sunday? Is he going to show up at 110%, running around, having no issues? Or, depending on what the illness is it going to affect his play? Is he going to be slower? Is some of his breathing not going to be quite as there? We've all had a cough before when we've gotten sick. We've all had colds. We know that the next day that you try and go run around, move around, it can greatly affect you. It'll be interesting to see how well Lake is able to perform. Hopefully he doesn't have a Michael Jordan flu game type of situation. Next player that we're going to take a look at is Byron Young. Now, the defensive lineman has had a fantastic year this year for LA. And what I think is important to note and important to talk about when we are mentioning what's going on with Young here is that he is dealing with a sore knee. Now, he's been fantastic on the edge for this defensive line and for this defensive group. Obviously having a ton of tackles, not afraid to get after the quarterback, and in fact does an excellent job, the best on the LA Rams team at getting to the QB. So it's a good thing for the Seahawks to know that Young might not be at 110%. This is coming to us from Greg Beacham earlier on in the week. Obviously, Byron Young had experienced some knee soreness, and that is why he actually didn't go all the time like he normally would against the Chicago Bears. Now, this is important to keep an eye on because as a defensive lineman, you need your knee to be at 100%. You need your knee to be able to let you to bend, to move, to be in a position to make plays on the quarterback. Now, I have no doubt in my mind that Byron Young will be out on the field for the Rams, right? There's no question about it. He's the type of player that will not allow his body to fail him. He will not allow himself to not be active, not be able to go out and perform at the highest levels. What is important to note about Young is how many snaps is he going to get? We saw his lowest snap share against the Bears, coming in at just about 40% of the game, a little bit over that. If Young isn't able to go much more than that against the Seahawks, I feel a little bit more comfortable about the tackle situation, especially on the left side for Seattle. So that is going to be something that we need to make sure that we keep an eye on. Are you concerned about the Seahawks injury report? Let me know down below in the comment section. Type yes if you are, type no if you're not. Important to really dive into that. And I think right now, I would say I'm cautiously optimistic. So concerned, just so ever so slightly. The last Rams player that we need to take a look at is Emmanuel Forbes. Now, it is important to mention with Forbes, he was a limited participant in practice on Wednesday, but he's actually been doing a pretty fantastic job this season and actually taken a gigantic step up as a player. Forbes was not someone that was supposed to come in and really light the world on fire for the Rams. When you look at his entire year, though, he's done a fantastic job of not allowing opposing receivers to big catches on him, and in fact actually did a halfway decent job against Jackson Smith and Jigba in the first game that these two teams played each other. Now, obviously, JSN had a little bit more success in that second game, but Forbes being 100% or not is going to be key. Now, his injury is to his shoulder, right? So it may not affect him as much as a lower body injury, because if you're a cornerback, you want to know the best way to make sure that your shoulder stays healthy. Well, don't let the opposing receiver catch the football, so that way you never have to take a shot. Obviously, when you look at this team down in LA, they are a little bit more healthy than the Seahawks. I would make the argument, though, that their injuries are a little bit more, or could be a little bit more impactful than the Seahawks, because the Seahawks are handling Cross, Sam Darnold, the likes of those types of guys with more of a cautionary kind of a tale. Right now, the injury report does worry me a little bit for the Seahawks because, well, anytime you have your left tackle on the injury report, anytime you have a top edge rusher on the injury report, anytime that you lose your number 2 running back that's getting a lot of run, that's never going to be a good thing. But at the end of the day, I trust Mike Macdonald. I trust the rest of this Seahawks team, the rest of this Seahawks crew, to not only be ready to go and be ready to fire on all cylinders, but more importantly, I expect the guys that are on that injury report that we need to be key contributors to be ready to go and to play at the highest level for this team and for this squad. Thank you guys so much for viewing today's video. Make sure that you come on in and hit that sub button. We are trying to pass the Rams report right now. We're getting so many subs on the channel. Do not let the LA Rams, that team down south, beat us at any point on any of the shows. Not on the field and definitely not on our subscriber battle. Thank you guys so much for viewing today's video, and I'll catch you guys next time.